An entitled jerk walks into my restaurant, seats himself at a dirty table, and then demands that I drop everything that I'm doing to only serve him. But despite the fact that I was the only server on the busiest night we've had in a while, and after enduring his swearing and screaming at me, I finally put my foot down and kicked this guy out of my restaurant. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago when I was still working at hotels and restaurants to put myself through school. It was the middle of August and we were dealing with scorching hot weather. In Canada, restaurants will have roadside patios in the summer, which means that our restaurant almost doubles its capacity. During the other 3 seasons, we have 18 tables with a 2 to 6 person capacity inside, and we have 2 servers. During the patio season, we have an additional 15 tables, all 4 person outside, and only 1 additional server. Well, on a holiday Saturday, I get into work one day only to find out that our host had called in sick, and so had the other 2 servers, meaning that it was only going to be me on the floor to do everything. Now, it does get busy, but I'm managing for the most part. And because it is such a nice day, I'm able to convince everybody to sit on the patio, which means less running back and forth inside. The patio is completely full, and I have 3 tables inside, which means I'm now at my limit. All the tables need drinks, half of them haven't even ordered food, and I know I cannot take another table until I'm caught up. I just can't do it. I'm cashing out 1 table on the patio when a man walks up to me and says, "We'll be sitting there as soon as they're done, so you need to clean this up right now." But I tell him that it will be about a 30-minute wait for a table. I have no time because it is just me. I then go inside to get food for another table, and I go outside to see him sitting at the dirty table. But I decide for right now I'm just going to ignore him. He then calls out to me as I'm handing other people their food and says to me, "This table is disgusting. Come clean it right now." But I replied by saying, "I'm sorry, I told you it was not available and you will have to wait." As I'm going inside to get even more food to run, I eventually come out of the kitchen with new plates, and this guy literally has the dirty plates from his table and tries to hand them to me, even though my hands are full. But you know what? I just walked by him. He then just put them in a table inside and said to me, "I need a menu, please." But once again, I just ignored him and continued working on my other tables. Now, mind you, this has been about 8 minutes total so far, but eventually he manages to get a menu from another table because he told them I accidentally forgot, and that table told me that he was super mad at me for forgetting. He then starts trying to tell me what he wants to order, as well as barking at me to clean up his table. But again, I completely ignored him. For the full 30 minutes, I had told him that he would need to wait. But now I am finally caught up. But when I approach the table, he literally starts screaming at me. And by the way, if he had not screamed at me, I would have just let him order his food like normal. But he made a serious mistake, because the second he raised his voice at me, I told him to get out. He then literally threatens me, and I tell him right then and there, "Okay, try me. The guys in the kitchen will step up if he even puts a hand on me, and every single one of them are felons." He then demands to order food. But that's when I told him, "Okay, well, you've seen how good I am at ignoring you. Do you want to see how good I am at throwing people out?" Eventually, he finally gets the hint, and he leaves while swearing and yelling at me along the way. Now, the only downside was the tables he took the menus from asked to talk to the manager because they thought that I was in the wrong and that I should have just served him like normal. They also refused to tip me and were really rude to me the rest of the time. But thankfully, my manager took my side because, of course, I didn't do anything wrong. Wow, that guy's a piece of garbage. Seriously, who's gonna act like that at a restaurant and then expect to still be seen? This guy literally walked up and was like, "Oh, you better serve me right now. I need you to clean this table right now. Oh, by the way, here's all the dirty dishes you don't have time to clean up yourself." Like, what is wrong with this guy? This is some weird entitlement that I just will never understand. But for me, the best part about this is the fact that your manager took your side. The number of times I've run into managers who just would not come to bat for me, especially after dealing with people like this, is astronomical. Most managers I dealt with in the restaurant business would fold like a house of cards the second there's any kind of complaint, because they're too much of a coward to deal with it themselves, but also the first ones to blame you if anything goes wrong. But thankfully, it sounds like you don't have to deal with that, because that truly is a nightmare in and of itself. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for questioning my boyfriend about why he didn't call off of work for my surgery? Because right now I'm scrambling for my ride situation to and from my surgery, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, I'm a 30-year-old female, and I injured myself back in May when a table fell on my foot. I couldn't bear weight for about 2 months, but it finally got better. I slowly started to be active again, but something in my gut was telling me to still take it easy since I still had some pain. Fast forward to September after a week of walking a lot during vacation, and the pain has completely intensified. terrified. I then went to see a doctor who informed me that it's likely a lacerated tendon that needs surgery. The surgery got scheduled for the end of October, and I let my boyfriend know 2 weeks prior what date and time it would be. I remember sitting him down and asking him about this because I needed to fill out paperwork online that was meant for some kind of point of contact for the post-op pickup. Today, I was confirming the times with him again, only to then find out that he can either drop me off or pick me up, but he cannot do both. And I was super confused because I informed him 2 weeks ago, and I thought he would let work know in advance that he needed a few hours off in the morning, but it turns out his work doesn't need that advance of a notice, and he can just tell them the day of. So I asked him if he was using PTO for this, and he said no, and I just didn't understand why since I told him in advance, and he said he didn't want to miss his meetings or use PTO for something like this. Now at this point, I just felt hurt because he's not taking this seriously, or he seems like he just doesn't want to do it. He basically said he can only do one or the other because he doesn't want to miss meetings, and if I have other means to do this, then I should use them. He's now saying that I'm ungrateful because he's already doing me a favor and thinks that I'm the jerk for putting all of this on him to begin with, and he's upset that I'm questioning if he cares about me. But right now, I'm at a loss for what to say or how else to phrase this just to show him that all this makes me question if he can't be there for the sickness part of our marriage down the road. So am I at fault for expecting this out of him? Because right now, I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your boyfriend literally agreed to help you out with this, and then the day of, he's like, I can't believe you're putting this all on me. Seriously, what's your problem? And it's like, no dude, what is your problem? You agreed to help her out. At least have some kind of backbone and actually follow through with it. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario because your boyfriend is being completely ridiculous. Because if he really did care deep down, he would make time to make this happen. But as it stands, it honestly just doesn't look that way. Am I the jerk for getting my ex-wife and my kids uninvited from a Halloween party after I put my foot down and decided that I don't want her anywhere near my life? Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex-wife and I have been divorced for 6 years, and we have 2 kids together under 10 years old. The divorce was not unusual, but a pattern emerged during that time where it seemed like my ex would try to intrude into my business whenever possible. Her boundaries are not good, or rather, her willingness to respect my boundaries. Here's a few examples to try and illustrate my point. For starters, I kept the home, but even after moving across the city, she felt entitled to enter my home whenever she wanted. She created fake social media accounts to try and keep tabs on me, and freaked out on me several times when I started dating, despite being in a relationship with her affair partner. As a result, I decided to do everything I could to avoid any crossover in our lives other than the children. I stopped talking to mutual friends and built my own network of friends that she doesn't know. And this has been great for my mental health. Many of my friends live in my neighborhood, but my ex didn't know them when she lived here. She has interacted with them briefly at school events because my kids are friends with their kids as well. But when my friends have asked about her, I keep the information limited, and I'm not sharing the extent to which she made my life difficult during our marriage. So anyways, recently my ex took my oldest to a birthday party for one of my friend's kids. Apparently during that party, the moms were talking about our Halloween party coming up around my ex. Now I don't have my kids this year, but I go every single year. And according to my ex, she was invited to bring the kids. And according to my friends, she invited herself via text message after the birthday party. Now the truth is probably somewhere in between, but nonetheless, 2 of the wives told me about it the next time I saw them, literally hours after seeing my ex at an event for our kids. They were apologetic and said they weren't sure how it happened and were asking if I would be okay with that. But I told them I need her to not be there and that I'd offer to have the kids and bring them to the party if she wanted. My friends were understanding and said that they would support me however I needed, but I told them that I would make it about me and not them. Well, not surprisingly, my ex didn't go for it and was insistent that she was going. This led to a contentious back and forth where she accused me of trying to control her, demanding that if I wanted her to not come, I needed to call her, which is the usual place where she tries to steamroll me, by the way, and she's also claiming that I was violating her boundaries by talking about her with my friends. She's also insistent that she's allowed to be friends with anyone that she wants, and I can't stop her from being friends with these people. I finally ended it by telling her that she had been uninvited, and I was the one who communicated that on behalf of my friends. She then told my kids that I uninvited her from the party, and they were mad at me for a few days. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your ex-wife knew exactly what she was doing. She literally only wanted to be there so she could mess with you and your friends. And that's not fair in the slightest. Like, that really is so messed up. She's not there because she wants to, like, be included in this party. She just wants to be there so she can push over the apple cart one more time just because she can. Like, she's already following your every move on social media. Who's to say she's not going to try and do this again again by like squeezing information out of your friends. So no, you're not the jerk, and honestly, the fact that she tried to turn your kids against you is so insane in my opinion. And if anything, that shows the kind of person that she truly is. An entitled jerk comes into my bar at the last second, swearing and screaming at me over the dumbest reasons on planet Earth. And after dealing with this for so long, I finally snapped and put my foot down, kicking this guy out of my bar while also humiliating him in the process. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I am still fuming a bit from this interaction that I had the other night. For reference, I work as a bartender in a state that's pretty strict with their drinking laws, and the last call is at 1 o'clock in the morning. After a busy night, it's like 12:30 p.m. and I had some guys come in. I greeted him by saying, "Hey, how are you doing today? Can I grab your ID real quick?" And by law, I have to check anyone's ID who comes into the bar. Well, the dude sits down and goes, "You don't care about how I'm doing." Now, I paused, since he said this in a super rude tone, and I at first didn't get what he was referencing, so I then just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of confused. I just asked how you were doing and if I could see your ID." And before I could finish my sentence, he repeated himself by saying, "Well, you don't care about how I'm doing, do you?" And he said it much more aggressively this time. I just responded by saying, "I mean, I asked how you were doing and I do care, but I do really need to see your ID, especially if you're gonna be in here since it is just the law." He then took forever to get it out, and as I'm scanning, he just blurts out, "You do realize how aggravating and abrasive you're being, right? You don't care how I'm doing, and what, are you closing the bar right now?" At this point, I've closed down one side, but people are still at the bar sitting and hanging out, and I then start to say, "Well, for one, you came in here pretty abrasive yourself, and not very nicely. And yeah, just one half of the bar back here I'm closing up, as it has been a pretty busy night tonight." But again, he cuts me off mid-sentence and says to me, "Well, you don't need to have an attitude, and I want a beer, so can you at least accommodate that?" At this point, I was taken aback. I not only had my normal customer service voice on, but I was also in a great mood when greeting this guy, and I was just shocked that he would still demand a drink after just rudely and loudly saying this to me. All I said to him was, "Okay, is our cheapest beer fine for you then?" And he just grumbled and said, "Yeah, whatever." As I'm going to grab the beer, he then goes on to say, "Well, look, I'll keep my mouth shut if you keep your mouth shut while I drink this beer, and maybe I'll tip you if you shut up." Well, I didn't even set the beer down before I told him straight up, "Okay, now I'm gonna have an attitude with you. Get out of this bar right now, because if you don't, I'll have you removed." And as his sorry butt left, he just kept repeating, "Oh, look, there's that attitude, you jerk. What's your problem? I should just get this beer for free at this point." The customers drinking at the bar were shocked at what he had just said, and thankfully tipped really well, and they all apologized to me for having some random stranger talk to me like that. Now, I am and was lost for words over how someone could think that I would still serve them a beer and beg for a tip after being spoken to like that. Plus, coming in before last call like that is seriously the absolute worst. Like seriously, get lost. Because if you're going to come in late, the least you could do is try not to be an absolute jerk about it. Oh man, I love this story because I'm so glad the original poster kicked him out. In my opinion, customer service goes out the window the second they start swearing at me. I don't care where you work or what you're doing. That behavior is unacceptable. And the fact that this guy came in super aggressive, clearly having a bad day, is not only not my problem, but also it's something that needs to be punished. Because if the original poster had just rolled over and played dead and said, "Oh, you're right, sir, here's your beer, don't worry about it," that is only going to encourage that crappy behavior. So truly, I'm so proud of the original poster, because this kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for asking my fiancé for money after he wrecked my car and completely totaled it? Because right now, I've decided not to marry him, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my now ex-fiancé and I were driving in my car to a concert, and for the sake of the story, we'll call my ex-fiancé Steve. The concert details mentioned valet parking across the street from the venue, so we settled on parking there. 2 miles from the venue, I noticed on the map that the hotel with the valet service was on the left side of the road, and assumed that we needed to be in the furthest left lane of the one-way road that we were driving down. So I told Steve that it would be a good idea to go ahead and merge in advance. Well, Steve said not to worry, that he would get into the left lane when he needed to, and stayed in the middle lane. Once we were half a mile from the venue, I saw a public parking garage on our left. I thought the garage may be a cheaper and easier option, so in a split-second decision, I told Steve to go into the garage. Well, without looking behind him, Steve turned into the left lane, and we were hit by an oncoming car. My car was towed, and we ended up walking the last half mile to the concert, with me having to pay for the 40-minute Uber ride home. Now, the car didn't look good. It was hit in the front left corner, and the tire was completely broken, and I've now accepted that the car is likely totaled. I called Steve the next night, and I believe that since he was driving, he should pay half of my $1,000 deductible. I also asked him to pay 50% of car payments on the used car I end up buying, all the way up to the value of my old car. But he refused, saying that he needs to think about what is best for him financially. He said I didn't care about him because I was trying to put him in a tough spot. He said that he can't and won't help me pay for another car. Now, I am a full-time college student graduating this year, and I have a part-time job that pays $9 an hour, and I do have some money saved up for emergencies. Steve just started a full-time job making $17 an hour and is currently living rent-free with a friend. He drives an older car given to him by his parents with over 150,000 miles on it because his car gave out recently. And funny enough, that car was a replacement for his previous car, which he also wrecked. After our conversation, I thought for a while and realized I don't want to spend my life with someone so selfish. So I called him back to break things off. He was staying at his parents' house for the night since his job site is in the area. And after a few minutes of me telling him that we were over and why I was breaking things off, I heard his dad's voice on the other end. And you know what? His dad tore into me, saying that my insurance payout should be enough to get a replacement car. But I said I was asking for help to get a reliable vehicle that was comparable to what I had. And he just refused on behalf of his son, saying, well, that's life, and that Steve has things of his own that he needs to save for. At the end of the call, he said that if I was serious about asking this from his son, I would be doing him a favor by leaving him. He said that I woke up everyone in the house and then he just hung up on me. I then spent the rest of the night sobbing, and it's honestly made me questioning everything. So am I the jerk for asking my fiance for money when he wrecked my car? What should I do? No, this is completely reasonable. The fact that this guy's not willing to pay, what, $500 towards your car, as well as helping you buy a new one, in my opinion, is so weird. Like, does he not realize that this really is his own fault? He was driving your car and was being completely neglectful. That's not fair for you in the slightest. You didn't ask for that. And the fact that his dad was speaking for him, in my opinion, says all that you need to know about this guy. So no, I don't blame you for breaking things off, and I don't blame you for asking for money, because this guy is a complete coward for literally thinking that this is somehow not his problem. Am I the jerk for refusing to allow my ex access to money that I saved for our son after she found out that one of her kids has cancer? Because right now I'm starting to be really guilt-tripped by these people, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my ex and I share a 12-year-old son, and we broke up when our son was 4 weeks old. We shared physical custody from the time that he was 14 months, and I had visitation prior. And when our son was 4 years old, my ex remarried. Fast forward, and my ex now has 4 additional children with her husband, and this is where her wish for access to that money comes from. I saved for my son and set up an account that only I can access for right now. My ex was never a part of this, so I never added her to the account. I also have it protected should anything happen to me, meaning that my ex won't be taking control of any of it. One of my ex's children was diagnosed with a rare type of cancer. Their household has seen a lot of changes, and my son has struggled with those changes, and I pick up the difference where I can. So my son still goes to his activities paid for by me. I put extra money in his lunch account at school so he can always get a school lunch, and I went a little bit bigger for Christmas, which I always start buying early. My son always knew I saved for his future. He mentioned it to his mom after his mom said they were pulling all finances on their end, including anything put aside for the futures of him and his half-siblings. Well, this brought my ex to me, and she asked how much I save, which I refused to tell her. She asked me for access to the account, and again, I said no. She then suggested that I should give it to her so it can go towards funding all the help that they need to cover the cost of a sick kid, but I still refused. My ex even tried to get our son involved, and my son told me that he didn't want to keep giving stuff up, and he didn't want him to take his money. So I promised my son that it wouldn't happen. My ex ended up sending me a breakdown of what they want the money for, and I did look it over, but only after I told her that I would not take our son's money and give it to her for her other children. I told her I had a duty to my son and not to her other kids. Well, my ex then started calling me names, so I just ended the call. She then sent me a text message asking me how I could say no to helping a child who's sick. I told her that their sick child was not my responsibility, and my responsibility is to ensure that our son has a good life, the child that I made with her, and not the children that she made with her husband. Now, so far, my son has not had to deal with any of the fallout, but my ex has sent several messages ever since, with her husband sending a few of his own. So, am I at fault here for not wanting to give up my son's money that I'm saving for him? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This is such a weird request. Like, seriously, why on earth is this now on you to take care of their sick kid? And yes, the kid has cancer. That really is tragic. But why is this now suddenly your fault and your responsibility? Like, for starters, that's not your kid. But also, why should you be guilt-tripped into paying for this? So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way your ex is acting, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.